a guy who holds, more titles than probably anybody and knows a heck of a lot about this because he's the former governor of Kansas, Dr. Jeff Colyer. And I said I'm just going to call him Dr. Governor. But, Governor, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor to be with you today. It really is.
So, Doc, I think, we had a guest earlier that was Dr. Stephen Greer, who's a financial analyst and a surgeon, a doctor. And he was saying that the people being shacked up for so long was a contributing factor to the unrest in the cities because they unleashed people when everybody was volatile, and it begets itself if you have a quite good organization who knows how to foment that stuff. Isn't this going to hurt the economy, like, way beyond these protests?
Well, for starters, we had a terrible thing that happened, a real injustice that has happened. And people recognize it. But also, people are at an extraordinary stress level at this time. Being cooped up for 3 months, in addition, the questions of what's my economic situation going to be like. It's an unparalleled time for us. And it's happened in a very quick amount of time. There were a lot of people that were looking at what sort of stress levels were crime rising, and they were expecting lots of things to happen, and they didn't. And then this happened, and I think part of it is a combination of a very righteous, well-intended that we've got to do something, but also a bad situation as well. And you throw the two together, and it can become combustible.
Well, Governor, I'm curious. We've been hearing a lot of warnings over the last couple of days about the possibility of a second wave. A lot of people pointing to Arizona and the uptick in cases there as a warning to cities like the one I live in New York City, saying, you see, that's why you can't rush reopening. They're all reopening, and look at people getting sick. What's your view in terms of the debate over reopening and risking a potential second wave?
So, most people have been looking at this as saying there's probably two waves, but it's probably one that we've crushed that hill. We really did knock that down. And then the second one is most likely after Thanksgiving in the late fall, which coincides with flu season, also coincides when people are indoors, more compacted overall. So what we're really seeing in between, though, is kind of a series of ping pong balls that bounce up, and those may be more regional or relative to a particular situation. It may be that there is a flashpoint in a particular region. I see this summer and fall as a series of ping pong balls that are out there rather than giant spikes. We've shown that we can crush the curve. What we really need to do is, if you have a good testing regimen where you actually, like a political survey, if you survey every week, you get a pretty good sense of what the trend lines are. What you can do, if you do the same thing with testing, then you can find a hot spot before, when there's 70 people rather than 700 people. You can find that hot spot and then spend some resources on that. Be smart and be scientific about it. Unfortunately, most states aren't doing that. Right now, Kansas is lagging behind, for example, my state. But there's a lot of things that you could do that could be smart. And what the other part is, businesses have gotten smart. People are smarter than we were a month ago. And so just a number of smaller modifications could have a big impact, that you don't have to keep everybody home. Let's isolate the few to protect the many instead of isolating the many to protect the few.
Yeah. Hey, Doc, Governor, I'm sorry. I might have to just go to Dr. Governor. It's just going to make it easier for me in the long run because anyhow, I see, we try to call out the crap on this show. We look at a different angle on things, different perspective. But, I mean, isn't it just ridiculous, the narrative that they're showing red states where the cases are skyrocketing? They're calling them outbreaks, right? The red states that reopened. But of course we're going to have more cases because now the federal government got them the resources to do more testing. We're going to find it if we're testing for it, right?
That's right. So a lot of times what you're seeing is you're seeing more yes, more people are being tested, and so you're going to pick up more. But actually, the percentage of people that are positive out of all of those new tests has actually gone down.
Right.
And in addition to, we're seeing in most instances, ICU admissions have gone down. And if you watch the data, yes, if we're going to do more testing, yeah, the numbers are going to go up with it. Could there be a little flash in a particular place? Say you discover a meat packing plant that has 700. Well, now suddenly you've got a big flash there, and you see that show up in the statistics in the wrong place. And in reality, it's just an isolated outlook.
Governor, we're seeing some of these demonstrations get violent, as we've seen here in New York. We're seeing some get out of control, as they have in Minneapolis, where they actually set fire to a police station. And in some places, out of control is not even the word. I would say treason or sedition is the word, like in Seattle, where Antifa has actually taken over a section of the city, including a police precinct that's been surrendered by the city to this entity. And they've set up their own autonomous country within a city in the United States. I didn't think I'd see this any year after 1865. What would you do if you were governor and this was going on in your state? How do we bring peace to the streets of the United States when there are still some who seem so dead set against peace?
So, there's clearly different groups. There's clearly a problem. And you know what? We're Americans, and you know what? We face our problems. Let's deal with these racism issues. And the way that you do that as a governor or as a local leader is you talk to the community. You get out there. You listen to them. You work with them on a strategy. So when I was governor, for example, there are a number of bipartisan things that you could do. For example, in criminal justice reform. But you can do things there, things that help end racism. But then also, though, the first right that every American expects is that their freedom from violence. And, you have to be able to listen and deal with the problem and provide protection. That involves police intelligence, that involves working with that local community on a best solution rather than giving up to the mob.
Yeah, I mean, they're really forcing. It's almost like there's an organization that's trying to force the president and the federal government to use military action on U.S. soil. It's like they're trying to force that issue. But what's the president of the United States to do when an occupying force takes over a city and it's lawless for 7 blocks now, and it's only going to get bigger, I would imagine? Could it come to that? I mean, it could cause real, almost civil war.
I think we're Americans and we bet on ourselves. And you know what? We're going to come up with an answer. And part of that answer is going to be solving a problem and confronting an issue at the same time. And that's what we do well, because we're Americans. We listen. We do have a democracy. Part of that is going to have to be we give a lot of deference to states and communities. All of the things that are not in the Constitution are reserved to the states. And ultimately, it's that state that's going to have to solve a lot of those problems. If they don't, then the president and others have said, we're going to need to step in. I think you're going to see some local responses that are going to say, enough is enough of this. You've seen a lot of different states.
I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping for that, for sure. Dr. Governor, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Keep up the good fight there in Kansas for us, and maybe one of these days we've got to click our heels together and get you in studio with us here in New York.
Hey, would love to do that, and thanks for checking in with us. We're going to get through this, and you know what? America is going to be better next year.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Thank you so much, Dr. Governor Jeff Colyer, former Kansas governor. Great guy. We'll be back right after this.